So today, we're going to break down commentator Megyn Kelly's take on some of America's biggest fault lines. We're talking culture, immigration, and the way our government works. Based on a recent interview, we're going to see how she pulls all these threads together into one pretty powerful story about where the country is headed.
All right, let's dive right in with this quote because it really frames her entire argument. For Kelly, it's not one America, it's two distinct, competing, and deeply divided Americas. And that's the lens she uses to look at, well, everything else.
So, here's how we're going to walk through her thinking. We'll kick things off with her tale of two Americas, then get into her very firm stance on immigration and the whole sanctuary city debate. After that, we'll look at her diagnosis of what's wrong with Washington, and finally, her take on the growing power of the president. Okay, so first up, this whole idea of a cultural clash. Kelly zeroes in on a big, recent event, the Grammys, to make her point that America has this deep, fundamental divide in its values. And wow, she does not pull any punches here. She paints this picture of elite jerks living in these gated, guarded estates, and she argues they're just completely walled off from the real-world impact of the policies they champion, a world away from the lives of most Americans. This slide right here really gets to the heart of her two Americas idea. You can see on one side, she portrays leftists as constantly unhappy, always protesting, and kind of preachy. And on the other side, she presents the right wing as content, focused on family, and hardworking. So for her, this isn't just about politics. It's a completely different way of life. And look, this cultural argument, it isn't just talk. It leads directly to her central policy focus, immigration. She's basically saying these two Americas have totally opposite ideas about who should be in the country, and the stakes just couldn't be higher.
Now, Kelly argues her position isn't some fringe idea. She says it's totally mainstream. She points to a poll that, in her telling, shows a majority of Americans want all undocumented immigrants out, not just those who've committed crimes. She's really positioning her argument as the true will of the people. So what's the bottom line here? It's crystal clear. In her words, the illegals must go. She's not talking about small changes. She is calling for a massive deportation effort, and she wants it to be at the very top of Donald Trump's to-do list.
Okay, so that brings us to a huge flashpoint in this whole debate, the clash between federal immigration agents and what are known as sanctuary cities. Kelly really hones in on this as a key battleground.
For Kelly, the problem is incredibly simple. These leftist-run sanctuary cities are, in her view, actively getting in the way of federal immigration enforcement. By refusing to work with ICE, she argues, they're essentially letting criminals who are in the country illegally just walk right out the door.
And she breaks down what ICE is asking for into this simple, what she sees as a no-brainer three-step process. She argues that sanctuary cities are refusing to do even this basic level of cooperation, something she thinks is just common sense for keeping communities safe. So what happens because of this standoff? Well, according to Kelly, ICE's job becomes way harder and way more dangerous. Instead of a simple, safe handover at a jail, agents are now forced to do these huge public operations to find and arrest people who've already been released. But you know, this whole fight over sanctuary cities, for Kelly, is really just a symptom of a much, much bigger disease. She zooms out to argue that the entire system in Washington is just hopelessly gridlocked and broken. And this slide, right here, gets to the absolute core of the problem as she sees it, the number 60. That's how many votes you need in the Senate to break a filibuster and actually pass a major law. Now, it was originally meant to force compromise, but she argues that today it's a nearly impossible hurdle that basically paralyzes Congress. And the proof? She says just look at the results, or, the lack of results. She points out that even when his party controlled Congress, Donald Trump had a really tough time passing big legislation. That 60-vote rule, in her view, is like a legislative straitjacket. So, okay, if Congress is stuck and can't do anything, what happens then? Where does all that power go? Well, Kelly argues it doesn't just vanish. It all flows to one place, the White House. And this, she argues, is a complete 180 from what the founders actually wanted. I mean, they designed Congress to be the most powerful branch of government, but because it's so gridlocked, it's created this power vacuum that the president has been more than happy to fill. And the result is what she calls these huge pendulum shifts. Instead of getting stable, long-term laws passed by Congress, we get this policy roller coaster. Every 4 or 8 years, a new president comes in, and with just a stroke of a pen, they undo everything the last person did. And that leaves us with this final, really critical question that gets to the heart of her whole argument. In a system where our most basic national policies can be totally rewritten every 4 years, what happens to stability? Her analysis paints a picture of a government that's always in flux, that can't plan for the future, and that's a huge challenge to the very idea of how American government is supposed to work.